Well, 24 Sussex is a symbol of the office it serves. It must also be a home. And the women and men who will lead our country in the future will need a residence for their families. I may not look like it, but my kids are already grown. And I will never, in any event, live in 24 Sussex Drive. But future prime ministers will undoubtedly need to raise their children here as they lead our country. So we'll restore it so they may do so safely and securely. In the end, I and all public officials are stewards of the offices we hold. We don't own them. We serve them to serve Canadians. And we have a responsibility to leave things better than we found them.
So that is Prime Minister Mark Carney. So it's not about him. It's not for him. It's about for future generations and prime ministers and families. James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette on the line. Jim, what'd you make of what you heard?
You will not find anybody who's a bigger fan of pomp and circumstance. The trappings of the British parliamentary tradition that we have in this country. I got to tell you, it makes me kind of proud to be a Canadian. But I almost winced when I heard him make this initial announcement. When I think about Canada, when I think about the Prime Minister's office, when I think about our system, I think the second to last thing I think about is 24 Sussex. The first to last thing I think about is Stornoway, because there's also another absurdity that we have. But we're looking at a pile of bricks. It was built more than 100 years ago. And yes, we can talk about tradition and whatever, but the fact of the matter is prime ministers didn't start living at 24 Sussex until 1951. We do the math very, very quickly. I believe that works out to about 75 years, which also means 84 years prior to that, prime ministers, I don't know, they probably weren't living in refrigerator boxes, but they weren't living at 24 Sussex. Okay. So here's my point. We look at these, and this is not the first time the issue has been raised, we look at the potential bill for repairs to bring the thing into the 21st century, to finally get rid of all the asbestos, to get rid of all the cloth-insulated wiring. And the low end of the estimate is about $35 million. The high end is about $100 million. But then again, Aaron, that's the number they're making public. You know and I know.
Sure.
That it's probably going to be about 3 times that. And even if, I don't see how he can win on this one. Even if he turns around, okay, it'll be a GoFundMe, public subscriptions. Let's face it, if corporate sponsors go in, the first thing they're going to say, they've bought and sold the government, now they control them because they own that. It's like you can't win with this. I don't understand why we don't just start from scratch, first of all. With all due respect to 24 Sussex, as I say, which does not make my heart go pity-pat in any way, shape, or form, and which, in fact, has been, boycotted by prime ministers since 2015. Trudeau he grew up there. I think he knew better than most. He didn't want to be living in that sort of like the equivalent of a very, 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 very expensive lean-to. So, Rideau Cottage, whatever. Is it? Am I wrong? Is it perhaps an even bigger symbol if we just made a new residence and for less than $100 million, Aaron? Okay,
yeah.
But you know what I mean. I know. Oh yes, it's at the affluence of the Gatineau and the Ottawa. No, I don't care. I really don't care. And honestly, and you could throw a stick anywhere in this great country of ours and hit 20 people who would be happy as a clown if they never heard about 24 Sussex again.
And that might include, by the way, Pierre Poilievre, who was on with Elias today and said this about it.
I haven't had a chance to take a look at it, and frankly, it's just not a priority for me. When I travel this country and I walk the streets, I meet young couples who can't afford a home. I meet seniors whose rent has gone up. They might have to lose their apartment. And I just think the last thing we should be worried about is 24 Sussex Drive.
Okay, fair to say.
Excuse me, Aaron. I have to tell you.
Yeah.
I know a guy actually who actually lived in a residence that was comparable to 24 Sussex in terms of luxuriousness, staff, servants, chauffeurs, whatever. Even after he lost his job, he squatted there for months. The guy's name is Pierre Poilievre, and it was Stornoway. And now he's back in only after we had to spend, Canadian taxpayers had to spend $5 million on a by-election to get this guy back into office. So with all due respect, Monsieur Poilievre, you just keep walking those streets and maybe not start getting haughty and talking down your nose from behind your servant prepared dinner at the luxurious digs that's thrown away.
Ouch. Okay,
Ouch,
shots fired.
right.
All right. Listen, I want to ask one other question here. With respect to today anyway, this whole Sussex Drive issue and your suggestion a minute ago, Jim, wouldn't it make, and I understand there's historical, significance and all that kind of stuff. If you knocked the damn thing down and started over again and made something modern, wouldn't it cost less than trying to fix what's there now?
You could probably get some contractors to come on and answer that question. I suspect it would. Just get rid of it. I don't know if there's any kind of magic, in 24 Sussex. I know it had a lot of distinguished visitors. You know what? The Citadel in Quebec City's had a lot of
distinguished visitors exactly.
As well. It's 24 Sussex. I think I don't, because I don't mind Mark Carney. I think he's doing the job. I haven't heard anybody say a bad word of him outside of the entourage of Pierre Poilievre. But I got to tell you, this feels like a mistake. I think this he's not reading the room, and indeed, given the where we are, I don't need Pierre Poilievre to remind me what kind of shape this country is, and economically, it sounds a bit tone deaf, even if it's publicly funded.
I think, the publicly funded thing I get is trying to look good. I think to myself, if you went to somebody, a developer, and said, hey, you know what, this is now your headache. It's on your dime. You put it together. It costs Canadian taxpayers nothing. That's a different story. I don't know that it ends up that way this way, though.
But I agree with you completely. I think that would be the best solution. But then again, you will have people who will get up on top of their
soapbox,
their pulpits, their soapbox, saying, "Oh no, corporate, they own the government, they built this," as opposed to saying, "You know what? These are civic-minded people who have the money and they put it behind it." That we never look at that. My God, Aaron, I work in Canadian media. Conservatives and progressives both think my ass has been bought by the government, okay? So I guess on the one hand, I'm doing something right, but on the other, it's not a very, very, how can I put it, conducive, trustworthy situation to be in.
Those people will always complain, though. You're right. You, me, and anybody else, that doesn't even matter. By the way, I had an idea. It's probably not going to work. Mario Lemieux is trying to sell his house up in Toronto, right? And it's a pretty nice place. Looks really nice. So
yeah, but you know what? It would be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it'd be absolute brilliance for the official residence of the Prime Minister of Canada to be in Quebec.
Wouldn't it though?
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? That just be so deliciously. Gee, how do we work this out if you win your referendum?
What a great story that would be. All right. The other thing to bring up today, so Ottawa, not going to ban the weapon used in the Côte-de-Nez shootout. No. I heard the Prime Minister sort of weigh in on this and basically pushing it off to the RCMP. Yeah, to reclassify and take a look at this and that. And the fact is, it's a reminder. And I heard you talking about Rabbi before. Man, is that guy great. I read that piece. I was almost sobbing when I read that piece in the Gazette that he wrote. But the fact is, every single time we have an obscenity like this, we are reminded there are two Canadas. There is the Canada that most of us, many of us in urban Canada, where guns have a particular look. There is rural Canada, which is a big chunk of Canada, trust me, where these are considered nothing more than tools. There is no dark shadow around firearms. They're simply tools. And the thing about this particular weapon that appears to have been used in this incident, it's dirt cheap. The hardware is cheap. The ammo is cheap. It's very handy if you're hunting or you're out there in the bush, whatever. That said, I don't think there's any MP anywhere, or MNA, let's be fair, because we tried to have this debate in Quebec and it went absolutely nowhere, who is going to step on that landmine, because you cannot win. It will cost you seats. And it's not a gun lobby. It's just a bunch of Quebecers, Canadians, people who don't live in the same place as you or I or a lot of our listeners, Aaron, who are saying, no, don't turn around and blame me for this. And no, don't turn around and take this out of my hands because somebody decided to abuse it. Jim, I want to move on to the question that I started, and I'm going to come back to when we get done. This concerns the decision to not be holding an English language debate between the political leaders before the October vote. There are going to be 3 in French, none in English, because the English Media Consortium that got together couldn't convince, I guess, all 5 parties. So first of all, and I asked Raphael Melançon about this yesterday, from a Francophone's perspective, and he said, you know what, it's a snub, and it should be taken that way by the English community. Do you agree? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a snub, but hey, add it to the list, Aaron. What are you talking about? I kind of got insulted when the Premier of Quebec turned around and said he's hearing too much English being spoken in Montreal. And to say that out loud and like it's normal. And nobody turned around and said, "Are you serious? Did you hear what you just said, Mr. Legault?" But I haven't heard, Christine Sachet disavow that. I haven't heard anybody from the CAC turn around and say, "Yeah, you know what? I think you went over the top there." Like, a lot of outrageous things that were said by this ridiculously incompetent government have just been normalized. But quite frankly, I think, if nothing else, I think the CAC and the PACIS, with their clear contempt, I won't say Anglophobia, but their clear contempt for anyone who speaks English and lives in Quebec, I think you learn more from that than you would from 100 English language debates.
We'll leave it at that. We'll see what our listeners think today. Jim, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.